We got Han Mei, a Chinese national who's a convert to Christianity. The story about her and her mom and her family. Jack, you've got a question you want to ask?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you if I could. There's a lot of reports out that they've been removing pictures of saints and things like that inside these churches and replacing them with pictures of Chairman Z and the outward
Well,
pictures
actually,
of,
crosses.
and crosses were being removed
crosses
from churches, particularly from steeples, things like that. Are you seeing this there in China right now?
I have from church friends. It is very pressing. Yes, because everything out to serve the purposes of socialism, communism. And they are also retranslating the Old and New Testaments to make communism ideologies and Chinese culture seem more divine.
What do you think, Han Mei? Let me ask you, if the firewall is to come down, what would you think? What would happen to the regime, and what would happen, in your view, in China?
I think taking down the firewall will trigger an energy, hope, and faith transfer. It actually will reveal the power of truth. People finally have that chance they've been longing for to search truth on platforms like G News and GTV. How did a virus outbreak begin? Why is the Western world, like the CCP said, so hostile to us? What really happened during Tiananmen massacre? People will keep asking. And once they found the answer, once they found out they've been lied to their life, their parents' life, their grandparents' life, it creates a great anger. And that anger is power. Because without a wall, we are no longer isolated. We can exchange information. It brings courage to people. They're not alone. There are people fighting along them. I think taking down the firewall is a great accelerator to take down the CCP. The CCP rewrote our history. They rewrote our present. They're not going to rewrite our future. And this needs to happen, and happen right now.
Han Mei, before we lose you, we've got people already blowing up on Twitter. How do you think the American people can assist here? What would you ask? I know some of your relatives have gotten out to the United States and are very successful here. But how can the American people, how can the deplorables, particularly the people in the Trump movement and those Democrats, working class Democrats that listen to the show, what can the American people and what can our audience throughout the world do to assist the Chinese people in their freedom?
I want our brothers and sisters to take a moment and to feel how severe this condition is. Pearl Harbor attacked on one of our Sundays. The CCP virus sneak attacked 17 Sundays so far, and potentially a lot more. This time is a bioweapon. What could it be next time? This is not a Cold War to me. This is the last war. This is humanity against the CCP. We're all responsible for it. I just hope people like deplorables like me, or even billionaires, just know the CCP never hold up to their end, not even to their own people, not even to us. All acting is to serve their dictatorship. I'm just asking people to ask your state government and federal government to react to this pressing matter. There's a time for everything. Our time now is to tear down a firewall because it is the great accelerator to end this totalitarian regime. Thank you very much.
Han Mei, thank you very much for joining us with all the courage that you're exhibiting and doing this. I hope our prayers are with you and your family.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for your time.
Wow.
Moving. I mean, I'm tearing up. For real.
It's unbelievable. I want to go now to Mary, one of the whistleblowers. I want to answer that question. Mary, thank you for joining us. I understand you come on today and you're using your whistleblower nom de jour at great risk to you and your family. I have a question following off of what Jack just said right there. The CCP tells the world the reason they have a firewall is that China is ungovernable, China is unmanageable, China is chaotic, and they need, as the former president said, they need to purify the internet for social stability. Mm-hmm. Now, the question I have you're a 4,000-year-old culture in society, and you had many firsts in the world, writing and gunpowder and all this. Why, from the Chinese people's perspective, is the CCP right? Are you people ungovernable? Are you uncivilized? Can you not manage your own affairs unless they block you off from the rest of the world and block you off from any spiritual development or any spiritual inquiry?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. Bannon. That's a great question. So I do have some thoughts about this. As real quick about my own background, I was born in mainland China and then moved to Hong Kong when I was around 14. And I've worked for many Chinese state-owned companies, and a lot of my family members are CCP party members. And this is a line that CCP is telling we are very familiar with. Their argument is always that, oh, there are too many people, the population base is too large in China, and then look at the Chinese history. We are always with this centralized government where democracy is not good for us. Actually, for me, this argument doesn't stand up at all. Because if you actually study with great deliberation of their argument, you'll find actually it's lacking key logical linkage there, and then it's not evidence-based at all. And then in terms of talking about tearing down the firewall, when I first got the topic, I had this question immediately coming to me. That is, why does it matter? Because to the free world, it's quite a simple concept that if there's no firewall, that simply means the freedom of the press and freedom of speech. But why freedom the press and speech matters, and why freedom in China also matters to the West? I think my answer for that is, with the acceleration of globalization and this pandemic that everyone can see, the U.S. and the entire world is already paying for communist China's lack of freedom. And I strongly disagree their argument of, oh, Chinese is not suitable for democracy, because let's look at human history. Human species are constantly seeking for a system that could keep a balanced world order. And this order, I believe, is the key to human civilization. And it's just the restraint of power. So tearing down the firewall gives a nation the fourth estate or fourth power, which is a mechanic of checking and balancing of power. Because I think we all agree to the statement that power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, because this is just human nature. And then let's again look at what the CCP sophistry is, like their clever but false arguments, which Mr. Bannon, your question was. They have these arguments with the intention of deceiving. The scariest thing is that it's working to some extent. Let me just quote them. This is a popular saying that a lot of Westerners and even Chinese elites are believing in, that there are too many fake news flying around in the so-called democratic Western world. So some sort of control or censorship from the government is necessary. This is totally just bullshit. It's just a superficially plausible argument. I mean, a free environment of receiving information is not an easy job, because it actually requires people to use their brain power. And that's called critical thinking. And I think that's the key engine to drive human civilization forward, not the other way around. And yes, it's undeniable that humans are flawed and human society is flawed, and democracy is far from being a perfect system. But again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. The imperfect democratic system doesn't rationalize the totalitarian regime. The flawed system doesn't justify the existence of dictatorship. And I mean, this is not only about China. Just look at Dr. Li Wenliang, and this is not an occasional event. It's an inevitable outcome under any kind of totalitarian regime, and now it's damaging the world. So
You're saying Dr. Li. You're saying Dr. Li, who was the great hero in Wuhan, who told the authorities in December of 2019 that there was a human-to-human transmission and community spread in Wuhan, and they should address it among his in a WeChat group with his other physicians. They hauled him in front of the authorities, made him, after torturing him, made him sign a proclamation, said he was a rumor monger, right? And then was going to ostracize him and his family. And then later, when they
Yeah.
proven wrong and they proved they lied, he became a great hero. Went back to the hospital in Wuhan and died, saving his fellow citizens of Wuhan from the disease. I want to give you a hat tip, Mary. I think you're the first Chinese national that's ever going to be penalized by the FCC, but we are greatly honored. That's truly what freedom of speech is. Last thing, I just want to ask before we let you go is, are the Chinese people ready for democracy? Do you see in your fellow countrymen in mainland, are they ready for democracy? Are they ready to govern themselves? Because, I've been in and around China since 1977, 1978. I have many Chinese friends there. I've lived there on and off in certain times throughout the last, 40 years or so. It seems to me that they are. If we can have it in the United States of America, right? We can have it. We can have it in China. But from your perspective, because the CCP continues to tell the elites in the world that the Chinese people are ungovernable, they're uncivilized, they're chaotic, and the whole Chinese enterprise will collapse if left to their own devices. What say you?
That sounds to me like a total joke. Just look at Hong Kong, Taiwan, or even those Chinese communities in overseas, in America, in the United Kingdom. I don't think there's a problem with Chinese fighting for democracy. I think we're totally ready for that. And I actually have a problem with some of the Westerners who are still arguing for the communist China. And I don't think it's now time for rational or theoretical discussion about, which kind of system is better. China's system is not that bad, maybe. I think there's no room for this kind of discussion. I mean, the CCP is the 21st century's Nazi and Soviet Union, or combined, or even worse. But at least the free world back then knew you were fighting against these strong and evil enemies. But today, before I came onto this show, I just read a piece of news from the Daily Mail UK, where the China's ambassador to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, he denied there was a cover-up on coronavirus. And this is what he was saying. He said, you can't have this campaign of stigmatizing disinformation and smear against China, as some American politicians are doing. So I think this, without the democracy in China and without overthrowing CCP or taking down the firewall, the entire world and also America is facing its strongest, biggest crisis since its establishment. That was my thought. Thank you, Mr. Bannon.
Mary, thank you. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. Quite heroic, and we look forward to having you back on in the days and weeks ahead. So thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.